Welcome to your Thursday Theatre Chat. My name is Lily Wolf. I'm the Newark's Associate at Chat Aug Theatre Company. And this is actually our last Theatre Chat of the 2026 season. So I know it's sad, but I'm so glad that you are here. Thank you for being with us. We have a really full and joyful final Theatre Chat, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's been going on. We opened How I Learned What I Learned, our final musical of the season. Thank you to those who've already come to see it, and we can't wait to see you all there who have yet to see it. We have a commissioned playwright in residence with us here at Chat Aug, who's joining us at this chat today. And we have our final new play workshop, which has been in rehearsal this week and will happen very soon, just at 2 p.m. today, and then also at 2 p.m. tomorrow and on Saturday. That's As You Like It, by adaptation by Peter Anderson and with original songs by Bandits on the Run. And we're here today to talk about music. What a delightful final point for us to get to discuss together and to introduce to you this incredible panel of people here. I'm going to start with Peter Anderson. Wave, Peter. Wave, hooray! Peter Anderson is the adapter and the director of our new play workshop of As You Like It. He's also the producing artistic director of Oak Park Festival Theater, which is right outside of Chicago. He's an actor and a director with a background in education as well. Peter focuses on works rooted in our collective past, bringing contemporary voices to these works with the intention of bursting them open. And I feel that so much in what we've been working on this week. Peter's partners in crime in this enterprise are indie folk pop rock trio, really trips off the tongue, Bandits on the Run. Bandits on the Run got a little taste of the Chat Aug magic when they played the amp last summer for the first time. They're a band formed from a chance encounter on a subway platform, and they began their career busking. Since then, they've toured internationally and composed music for film and television. In the theater space, they are developing the musical adaptation of What's Eating Gilbert Grape at MCC Theater. When can we see that, guys?
Next summer.
Thank you. Let's do that. June, right? Early summer, great. The Bandits also work individually as actors and behind the camera folks. Regina's a freelance photographer. Wave, Regina. Regina's a freelance photographer and worked on the casting team for HBO's and just like that. Sydney was recently in the Ruins at the Guthrie Theater, and Adrian was in the Avett Brothers musical Swept Away on Broadway. Whoo, they're busy people. We're also joined today by CTC commissioned playwright in residence and the most produced woman on Broadway, Teresa Rebeck. Teresa's first production on Broadway was Mauritius in 2007, followed by Seminar in 2011, starring Alan Rickman, Dead Accountants in 2012, Bernhard Hamlet in 2018, and most recently I Need That with Danny DeVito. Teresa wrote the book for the musical adaptation of the 1988 film Working Girl with music and lyrics by Cyndi Lauper, which premiered at La Jolla Playhouse just this year. Teresa was also the writer, producer, and creator of NBC's Smash, a hit TV show about the making of a new musical. And along with these guests, we have J. King Carroll, CTC producing artistic director, and who has, in the last couple of years, commissioned the musical adaptation of Kwame Alexander's Newbery Award-winning novel The Crossover, and some of you may have heard some of that music and that team speaking on the amp this summer. She's the director of that project, which is currently in development here at Chat Aug. So it's a musical bunch, among many, many other things. And we've gathered here today to discuss the role of music in new work. And you all play really varied roles in that process. So I kind of would love to start there. If we kind of we can popcorn and we can go down the line. Could you tell us a little bit about your role in the context of a new musical or a play with music? And that can be both how you might be listed in the program, but also how do you lend your artistic self to a process that looks like that?
Is this for bandits?
It's for everybody.
Yeah. I'm not for you guys.
How do you work on a music?
I do, but they should go first. Because I'm like, well, my experience of this world is like this, and they're right in the middle of how it works.
Teresa, truly, our experience of this world is also this.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I love that.
Yeah, well,
You got one.
I'll get mine. Okay, yeah. I mean,
like Lily said, we're also actors who come from an acting background. We studied acting, so we kind of found ourselves in a circuitous path back to the theater. When we started the band as buskers in the subway, it was sort of our way of, you know, you're an actor in New York, you're auditioning for things, whatever. So much of your career is at the mercy of other people, and as a writer and a musician, you get to create whatever you want. So we were like, we need a container for us to just like go out and do our thing. And it's funny that that sort of grew into something that started as a side thing that became a main thing and is now circled back into the theater space. So
I like to think we were always a little dramatic with our busking. We got to choose our venue, and we also made up these characters early on. I was Roy Dodger, Sydney was Bonanza Jellyfish, and Regina was Clarissa. And those were our band names. So there was a little bit of like guerrilla theater going on when we would come onto the train and be like, "This is a stick-up, a musical stick-up." And then, and I think we've kind of tried to hold on to that in our live shows, bringing the theatrical aspects to a concert venue. And it only makes sense that as we've gone on, we've kind of found our way into writing for theater. We met Peter Anderson, who we have now been working on Shakespeare with for almost a decade. Through that venue, through
the subway, yeah.
One of his collaborators saw us on the subway and then asked us to come and write songs for a Shakespeare in the Pub, which was something that they were doing for a couple of years. And so, but all of us also have been in multiple stages of musical development, from just a table read, coming in, trying to learn music, or even listening to demos while you're playing these characters, to doing a full workshop, which is like 3 to 4 weeks in a space where you're getting off book and you're staging it, maybe without costumes, to being on Broadway. We've done a lot of different iterations of music and theater, and right now, I would say Gilbert is kind of the biggest culmination of what's eating Gilbert grape for us, because we're writing the musical with our friend Christopher Sears, and we're also acting in the musical as members of the family of Gilbert Grape, members of the Grape family.
So when you ask us like, what can you like see in the bio for like what musical, you know, you're working on, like it varies from musical to musical at the time, because for Gilbert, like you said, we're developing it as songwriters and composers, but also we're cast in the show and acting together and also playing instruments in the show. So it's like a actor instrumentalist show that we're also writing. It's like a band creating a show kind of thing. Whereas with like As You Like It, I mean, like maybe we'll like do it, be in it someday, but like right now we're building it for other people to do, and as well as this other Yukon Gold Rush musical that we're writing for other people to do. So yeah.
I do think though that like what I would say about our mission as theatrical music writers is that we're trying to find a sense of openness and authenticity in the work that we create for other actors, that they can really find their own voice in. It's been a fun challenge to figure out how to score that kind of stuff. Because a lot of times a score for a musical is very specific, like note for note, please sing what's on the page. And we're trying to find a way in our careers to make room for each actor bringing a different set of skills and a different sense of personality, and creating roles that can contain multiple personalities and multiple octaves and just a lot of malleability. And
right, because for example, like at CMU, our Orlando was a soprano, and our Orlando here is like a bass baritone. So it's like, but we want to create a world where that can be continuous, like with every production of this show, that like it doesn't have to be boxed into these voice types and typical types.
And a lot of times, like in theater, people who are directors or writers or different areas of creative team, a lot of people started as actors, and I feel like it's a part of our journey as people who are creating pieces for other actors to live in and just other teams to be in. You know, there's information that we have from our acting lives about what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and any sort of missions we have, like when we were actors being like, I wish there was something like this. It's really amazing to be creating that, you know, for young us and the people who come after us.
Can I speak to that a little bit? I mean, this is my second time with this As You Like It, with you guys, and it's just really clear that you're all actors and keeping that at the front of your mind because the actors in the room pick it up so quickly and so effortlessly. You keep storytelling at the front of the music. I'm not a musician, but I've done a ton of Shakespeare, and there's music in every Shakespeare play. And so we'll get these composers who come in and it feels quite stodgy or like totally separate from the story we're trying to tell. But with you guys, you just weave it in so effortlessly. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Teresa, I see you nodding over there, responding to this stuff. You just premiered a new musical. Is there anything that they spoke to that you want to respond to?
Actually, I was thinking about music and plays, and I love what you just said, but every Shakespeare play has people bursting into song. Not a lot, it's not a musical, but it's, that's something that Ox Wilson did quite a bit, and it's always magical. And I just started doing it, or I did it a long time ago, in another life. And that's what I mean by when you guys were talking. I was like, no, don't start with me because I'm the person who's just going to go. There's got to be a place where this person actually stands up and sings, and then and then that turns back down. It's just a whole different approach, but it's incredible when you can make it work in a play. I will say one of the things that happened to me working on Working Girl was it's like big. It's based on a really famous movie from the Cindy Lauper's writing the score, and there are all these famous people attached to it, these famous musical theater people, and they were always like, she doesn't really know what she's. I mean, I was like, Cindy called me a newbie. I mean, I was like, I'm a newbie, it's true. And and then they were like, oh yeah. I mean, and I was like, guys, the story is a story. Is a story, and all the elements of the story have to speak and answer each other. I understand that, but like acting like somebody who's been writing plays for 30 years, like maybe on her first musical, doesn't know a thing. I think there's that kind of weird. So that's what's really encouraging about this discussion. Is I'm like, well, it's got to go this way. It was getting a little calcified, the whole idea of what an American musical is. And so now we're like open. I think we're at a moment. It sounds amazing. Where forms are being allowed to breathe a little bit more, and I agree as long as it's organic. And I'm somebody who always like plays aren't about this idea that they're about people. They're about all those other things, but I don't want to go see a play that's not. If someone asked me, if a student said what a play's about, I'd say they're about people and everything else, everything that's included in what a person is. I don't know where I was going. Oh, because you guys went there, and so we're all in this. It's a good board to be on.
Wait, keep the mic. I want to ask you about, because you've touched on it a little bit, the ways in which the process of writing the books for musicals sits either in contrast or in similarities to writing a play, as you've been sitting in a barn and doing for this past week.
Yes, and even within this, like it is kind of, I love that you guys all went when I said the word calcified. It's calcified, this idea, and because I had never, I did Smash, but mostly I was in charge of running the TV show, and I did have to keep explaining to them. We had Broadway composers working on it, and I had to keep saying to them, guys, this isn't a musical. This is a play about people making a musical. And they were just like, what? No. She's just the book writer. We don't have to listen to her. And I was like, I'm not the book writer, I'm the show runner. So, it was, right, I love that show runner. But even just, so when I started into working on Working Girl, I was very worried that I knew that, many musicals just don't want a lot of book. They're all like, and there's a lot of really confused talk about what the book does and blah blah blah. And I will say this: they keep firing book writers. I'm always like, that's a sign. I mean, that's a sign that there's some dysfunction here. So I was, the first couple of cracks through it that I had, I was very cognizant of keep it clipped, keep it on its front foot, and it made it kind of. I mean, that's not actually the kind of writing I usually do. I'm sort of more juicy about what we have a whole monologue. This actor's going to kill it. Do you know what I mean? So I was writing in a more slightly a little less authentic way because I thought that's what was being asked of me. And then as I continued to work on this project with some very I mean, Cyndi Lauper is brilliant. She's a tornado, but she's brilliant. And so I was working with really great people, and the more I did it, the more people were like, I would get these notes, more Teresa. We want more Teresa. And I was like, no, I'm the book writer. You want to cut Teresa. And as we moved into production, that turned out to be true, and I think it's partially because Working Girl is really a hero's journey. And there's a kind of vulnerability and honesty to that character that has to be twisted so that she can get to the next step. And you needed to always keep her vulnerability and her courage and that journey front and center. It wasn't about this song, this song, this song, this song. And I think that's true, that there are different kinds of musicals in that way. And I like that we're starting to drift into many kinds of musicals. I think that's better. Thank you.
I just completely, I just completely agree with everything. I think that we are just so not helped by preconceived notions of this is what a musical is, because I mean it's like people plays are about people, musicals are about people, and I think that people are so varied and have so much different music within them too. And so I think to sort of boil it down to a genre or a style of singing and being like, that is the art form, I think that we really have to be busting out that narrative, because that's just not true at all.
Jade, as a producer, I'm curious what excites you about musicals and plays with music, and then also what challenges they present as well.
I look at them as benefits first. The challenge is the same, it's just money, they're expensive to do. It's the same challenge as any story we're telling on stage, it's just magnified because there's more people and more resources needed. But I think musicals speak to a larger group of people. There's the Venn diagram. Music brings us together in a different way. I think music is a universal, like music and dance are universal languages. You can communicate without the words in a way that is evocative and creates empathy. What's the question about music? So what excites me about producing musicals is the event of them, is the music. I think it's important, always story first. I think it's important to know why this needs to be a musical, where the music lives in the people's bodies, in the story, whether it's as Teresa said, like every August Wilson has something larger than life that happens. It's often a song that needs to happen. When you get to a play, you get to a monologue, because it needs to happen, because there's no other way. You need to get to the song, because there's no other way to emote. I grew up with a composer, so my way into theater was listening to my father write a musical within Dasaki Shanghai the first 10 years of my life, and then write incidental music for Chat Aug and Strindberg and new plays as well. And then I'd hear him write that for 6 months, and then go see the play. And go, oh, so I have a unique way into theater. When I'm producing it, I'm not just interested in the musical of it, but Has the story been told before? Why does it need to be told with music? What makes this music exciting to me? I think crossover is really exciting because each character, when you read it, it reads like a musical because of all of the poetry in it. And you know, the main guy is based on a character from a jazz song. So like immediately we've got, okay, Filthy McNasty, we're gonna have a lick of that song in the opening number and establish that jazz is important to the father because it's culturally important, so that weaves in, and then we've got generational music. I think that's really exciting. Bandits, or two of the Bandits, just did a workshop of another musical that I commissioned that I was working on for years that Teresa's also seen, which was an adaptation, a bluegrass adaptation of the Eugene Onegin, of the band. And that was like, okay, where does the music live between us? Okay, it's gonna happen in Nashville, in Kentucky. This is important because now you're putting it in the 1940s. The music is of this world, so it's not just a bunch of music behind it, but like what is the impetus for the music and these people. And that's always interesting to me. I'll say one more thing because we're working on Wilson. Is if you look at some of those plays, and I would say this is true for Shakespeare too. I mean, you could probably make it true for Williams, but with Wilson, you can kind of go, okay, that character is, especially in like Ma Rainey or Seven Guitars, that character is the bass, that character is the horn, that character is that, and if you look at the ensemble, it all works like that. And I think when you're looking at a good musical, you can kind of go, okay, this is this person's theme. Last thing I'll say is Peter and the Wolf.
Yeah.
Right? Like as a kid, Peter and the Wolf, I can still go back to it and go, okay, I understand that the oboe is always going to do that. And I think that's so exciting when that happens in musical. But we don't need it explained, you can just kind of feel it.
Peter and the Bandits, can you talk a little bit about how you've been using these past few days with us? You met a conservatory of 9 actors who were, I think, all new to you, and we brought in 2 equity guest artists to work with as well, and you have just kind of embraced that group and listened to them. It makes so much sense what I've been seeing the past few days with what you're sharing now, the way that you pay attention to them and learn who they are and how they hold the music, and then encourage them to bring that into the room. And you do it with such relaxation and grace and openness, and it's very cool to see. Can you talk a little bit about the strategy of that, how you've used the time, and sort of what you've discovered here with us so far?
Yeah, well, I feel like we blinked and like got a whole show, frankly. And the only way we've been able to do that is these apprentices are so phenomenal. They're truly astonishing. And they're also kind and open-hearted and down to collaborate, and like whatever we throw at them, they sort of roll with it. You said yesterday, Adrian, you're like, we've discovered like 11 muses in the room. Yeah, I mean, I think as a director, especially doing Shakespeare, I always want the actor to bring their full sense of self. I'm not really interested in that like typical stylized Shakespeare where the men talk like this, you know, like I want to hear their natural voices in the room. And so like, it's just for me, it's about getting to know who that person is and leaning into their strengths as they're figuring out the scene and playing with that. And I feel like you guys are the same on the sonic end of things, like hearing where people's voices lie and then starting to like nudge in that direction as well.
I feel like so much of our writing is just like being fascinated by people, and I feel like it was very easy to fall in love with this group. And so, you know, and we wrote like 4 songs since Monday, because we'd get home and we'd be obsessed. We'd be like, this person's so good, we gotta get on a song, and then we'd write it, and the next day, you know, and they're so quick. It's really spectacular the work they're doing over there. They're so fast. But I think that compulsion is sort of due to like love and interest, and sort of going with like, I would be, you know, I'm losing my words a little bit, but it's I always want people to be like, it's so fun to watch them.
If I can say one other thing, I feel like this play, like the first time we did this, we just highlighted the songs that were already in the play and inserted some other songs from other plays. This time around, watching them work on a scene has been like, I think that scene is a song. Do you know what I mean? Like the play itself has been so supportive of transforming itself into music, but we wouldn't have been able to find that had we not watched them work a little bit at the top, right?
I would say like the table read on the first day taught us so much, and like also in terms of like playlisting, like what kind of songs go after each other, and where there are big swaths of like just text, like pages and pages where it's like maybe there's a song there, and like, you know, I feel like in addition to the 4 songs we wrote this week, we have like 5 other places marked where it's like, okay, we can go explore this. But there's like a part of writing that's like banging your head against your guitar or your computer or whatever, being like, I know this is a song, but like how? And then when you're in process with people and seeing them bring themselves to it, it's so like, it was so much easier to be like, oh, this is what this moment could be, and this is how it could be, and it was so inspiring to just, be in the room with them.
I will say we've had a leg up because we're working with with text that is very lyrical. Even Shakespeare's prose is extremely lyrical, and it's been a similar experience with What's Eating Gilbert Grape, because we're working from the novel, which is written from Gilbert's point of view, and there's a lot of poetry in the way that he's speaking. So when you have text that is just like poetic and there's full of metaphor and full of point of view, it's actually like there's already music in it somewhere, and you're just like trying to find it. And we've been pretty liberal, I would say, with Shakespeare's text, about like taking a soliloquy, and instead of looking at like, instead of being like, it's a monologue, how do we get from beginning to end, like going in and being like, where is the hook? Where is the most vivid poetic image? And that feels really nice to say, and maybe will feel really nice to sing. And that we're making that into the chorus so that it's becoming like this scaffolding that we're building the other ideas on, like a song. It's all Shakespeare's text, but it is a little remixed, and that's been a really exciting and thrilling part of it. We took this pretty well-known monologue, All the World's a Stage, and all the men and women merely players, the 7 stages of man, that Jakes says, and we took it and we kind of cut it up and made a chorus of it. And it was so thrilling to watch that monologue. It was just text and very vivid portrayal of a character, the character of Jakes, and like create a musical scaffolding around that then further opened Jakes up. And I really think that Zoe Tip, our Jakes, one of our guest artists, really like their voice was really inspiring to us in that, and they're killing it.
I gotta say, liberal, but also like really honoring the text. Like Wretched Ragged Man, you are kind of going line for line and turning it into music, and it's amazing.
Listen out for that one when you come to see it. It's truly incredible. And the newest,
Yeah. You want to talk about it?
No, come see it. Talk to me after.
Teresa, I've got one more for you before we turn it over to the questions from our talk ones. But since we're loving on this conservatory, one of the first things you did when you arrived here, you were like, I'm here. I need actors. I need to hear what I have. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with actors as the writer, and you know, this group, what you experienced with this group, as well as just more generally?
Yes. I used to work at this new play development center called The Lark, and there was a workshop there, and we just all come together every Wednesday night, and there'd be a bunch of playwrights. I mean, you had not like endless amounts of playwrights, but you had like 5 or 6 playwrights, and a whole bunch of actors, and anybody else who wanted to show up, and you could like do 10 to 12 pages, just hear them. So I knew that I could crank out 12 pages a week, because I knew on Wednesday there was going to be some really terrific actors who would read them to me. And to have that information sort of constantly coming back to me was a great way to work. And I haven't been able to do that for a while. And I I just did an adaptation of a Miss Marple novel for the Christie estate, and I wrote the whole thing without ever hearing a word of it, and it was so unpleasant. It just I couldn't focus. So when I came here, and I was like, well, they're here. I was supposed to go speak to them, and everybody was like, yeah, we can listen to these pages. And then I've been feeling I'm working on a play. I'm working on this slightly absurdist, there's a moment in Act 2 where I was like describing the play to them, and I went, this happens, and then in Act 2, Elon Musk comes. And then he's gonna. I get to like write a really demented Elon Musk, and then I was like, I think we're gonna kill him. So then when they read it to me, I had like 40 pages of I don't know what I'm doing. I hate myself. I suck. And then they made it sound so great, and also I met one of the ones that wasn't in the group that was there. It was this like gigundo. Australian kid.
Gabriel is playing Orlando.
Okay, and I was just like that, and because he's got that funny Australian accent, and I was like, I could get him to read Elon, so I'm gonna charge him through, and I'm gonna get there today, because I'm gonna get there for Gabriel. What?
You're gonna get there for Gabriel.
I'm gonna get there, but yeah, but seriously, you like go, it was exactly the same experience. Like, can I do this on that one? And the answer is yes. So, yep.
Teresa, I have a question for you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So something a challenge that sometimes we feel with working with amazing actors is sometimes an incredible performance can mask weaknesses in work. And I'm wondering if you ever feel like that. Like that's something that we've been talking about a lot, because we're like, wow, our friends are so talented, but like when you change your cast, it's like sometimes you run into this thing where you're like, oh, it's not as clear that this character, why this character is doing this, when it's just kind of blank, when it comes to the blank. Maybe it's not as in the text as this person who was just a really talented actor that was creating a beautiful emotional inner life that was maybe not supported by the text.
Okay, this is how to fix that.
Okay.
It's parentheticals and stage directions. You just write it, you don't have to change anything. I mean, obviously, if he or she is creating something astonishing, they're not doing it out of whole cloth, there's all that stuff is there. They're just landing on the version of it that is the most evocative, and so you can. I used to do that honestly. I feel like she's thrilled in this moment. Turning to Tennessee Williams, like describe the interior life, and then if they want to ignore it, that's what I would do. But don't change anything in writing. If it's great, leave it alone. Anybody else?
Yeah, let's turn it over to you. Do you want to raise your hand if you have a question for someone in this group? We'll come find you with the microphone.
So interesting to listen to all of you. I recently saw Sideshow, and it's all sub-narrative. It's a sub-view, I think it's called. And I felt it was too much. I mean, when do you figure out that there's a stopping point in having so much sung and no text? And, so that has to be confusing. And this all might be personal preference that I liked it or I didn't like it, but I'm wondering how you just...
I want to answer this one because that happened to us. And like, honestly, during the consistent feedback was too much Cindy, not enough Teresa. I mean, that's not really, Cindy's in tunes, I don't know, but there were too many songs. Like Act 1 was way too long, and it was just packed. And we finally went, you gotta lose 3 songs, and so you need a director who really has a great ear and control over that, because people, this is what I mean by calcified, it's that people get stuck in the more songs about you, and there really was a time, right? And there really was a time when it was like sung through was the holy, you could be Sweeney Todd, listen, that thing, nobody can touch it. It's the most brilliant thing, I think. It's my favorite musical. But I think that this is what I mean by times are shifting. People are starting to understand it. That's my experience, at least. That's all I'm recommending.
I think you know a lot. I think like the ear is such a critical thing to like develop, and everyone has it. I mean, so like the fact that you're like noticing that and be like, it's my personal preference. I think that's how the ear works on every individual, and I think it's really important. If things are oversaturated, you begin to just lose the magic, and it's like if everything's important, nothing's important. And I often think about the Coco Chanel style advice, where it's like, get dressed and then take off one thing. And I think that also totally applies to music and musicals and curating too muchness versus just enoughness.
Shakespeare, I believe, gave you 5 places for songs plus a dance break at the end. You've added songs. Were you tempted to add another dance break?
Say that last part again.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm always gonna have that.
Always. If you come see our show, there is literally one song where we yell, dance break. You won't see the dance break today or in the next few days, but
Not a choreographed.
not yet.
Within 2 weeks, there would.
Yeah, I think this show could dance for sure. Yeah.
Definitely. It danced last time. So.
Can I say, like, to kind of answer both of these questions a little bit, I think when you feel that saturation, it also is like you wanting another angle into the story. And so sometimes it means not every moment needs to be musicalized. I've also worked on plays or operas, things more of an operatic bent, where we wanted to keep the music going. It was just about finding space for there to be like digestion, like where there wasn't text, where there was more of a chorus or more of an instrumental or more of a dance break, so that you have a second to pause as an audience member and experience things in a slightly different way. Because if you're trying to listen for story the entire time, it's an exhausting thing for the brain.
And you check out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like a really well-constructed piece is trying to think about how to break it up enough so that you're using different corners of your brain throughout the entire thing.
I want to jump. I wasn't going to, but I'm jumping on it. And I often think it's about distilling, knowing how to distill. I was on, many moons ago, I was the assistant on Next to Normal, and when we started, it was called Feeling Electric. And the end of the first act ended in this amazing Kevin Adams Feeling Electric. Did you see it at second stage?
No, found it wrong.
That was, so before it was at second stage and Carol Wan, Carol Rock was the artistic director who trained me in how to be a producing artistic director. And she kept saying, like, okay, she got to change from Feeling Electric to Next to Normal. And there was still this song at the end of the first act called Feeling Electric. And it was really impossible. There was like 3 songs that she was adamant about distilling and just simplifying the story and getting to the core of the human relationship and what these characters and family wanted. And taking some of, like, Costco was one of the best dance numbers ever. But when they cut it, she wanted to cut it. Finally, they cut it at Arena and it went to Broadway. And it was all of the distillation that she wanted. So David Stone, which is incredible, actually gave her a percentage, even though it was past contract, because it was all of those really smart distilling things is what made the story in it work. Even though Feeling Electric was like the original song and title of the piece. So sometimes the oversaturation can get away with what's golden in the middle.
Hi, my wife and I
lucky enough to be here last year for the week and this year and see you perform both times. And today was happenstance too. We didn't know you were going to be here. My question is, been curious how your group evolved. Did you all play separately in the subway? How did the group evolve to where you found that you were good together musically? Well, you know, I love how you harmonize and how you blended together, how that evolved, and artistically you seem to be on the same page, and how you look back on it now and feel lucky, I guess.
It's lovely. Actually, two of us met in the subway. Adrian and I met on the subway platform. Regina and I have known each other since high school. We were next door neighbors in our dorm at our boarding school. So we go way, way, way back. And yeah, I think it's kind of funny. We've certainly evolved, but I feel like the first time we sang together, it just felt right. Like it's like corny, but we all have very unique, different sounds to our voices. But when you put them together, it like somehow makes sense. When we first started playing together, we were really inspired by like 60s girl groups and like tight harmonies, and just like how can we like, you know, really hone in on that like sort of like vintage sound. And then I think as we started like playing and incorporating more instruments, it became more modern, like the way our sound is. But I don't know if you guys want to continue that.
I mean, also we've added instruments as we've gone along, and I think we've really just followed the light, like what's feeling sparkly. Regina came to the band playing a little bit of guitar, but at a certain point saw an accordion in another act and was like, I think I want that to be my instrument in the band. And so it was like learning it from learning it from scratch. And if you know anything, you don't really need to know anything about accordion to understand that it is a complicated instrument to learn. We kind of all learned it together by being like, what is this button do? Oh, that's that chord. Yeah, put that there. What if we do these two together? Oh. And like it has been a lot of trial and error, and that's one of the challenges about putting our style in a theatrical setting where there is a very specific way to do things. It doesn't always have to be that way, but there's a sense of organization, and like you start with this, and then you move to this, and then like for a lot of our careers as developing our own music, it's been like extremely trial and error. Try this. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, what if we do that? Oh, one of the things that we found over the years is that all of the instruments that we play are kind of mid-level instruments. So one of the challenges that we've tried to do is like, how do we get a cello to have upper register? How do we use the accordion as a bass and add lowness to it? Cindy's now playing with an octave pedal, so sometimes she's adding a lot of low end to her cello lines. And I'm like cabling up the guitar. And the same thing with our voices. I feel like as we've gone on, we've just tried to find stylistic things that we like, that we adore, that we fall in love with. And we've written a lot of things on spec and then been like, wow, I had no idea that we could sound like that, so let's try to get more of that into an original song. There's so many times where we've learned a cover and been like, oh crap, and then we then write a song that kind of is honoring that cover, or like what we've learned in that cover, because it's like, oh, this is a new skill that's been unlocked. But it's just it's accrued over a decade of working together.
And I think the last thing I'll say is that we've never, I'm proud of us for allowing ourselves to evolve, because I feel like once a band finds their sound, they're like, that's our sound forever. And I think we've been very fluid in just not putting ourselves as one thing, so.
There's also kind of the spirit of openness, I think. I'm sorry. Last thing, this spirit of openness that we're trying to invite other people when we're working with a cast. It's like come in. Like we want you to be a part of this band, of this experience, and we're learning from you as much as you're learning our material.
And musicals are collaborative in such a different way that they kind of invite you to find your home in the center of it.
And in the spirit of that openness, we're going to be conducting talkbacks in a slightly different way for this new play workshop. For a practical reason, this is a very streamlined cut of As You Like It, but there's also music in it. So glad that there is. And then we have a 6 o'clock show of How I Learned What I Learned. So so that we can get out of the space and allow our teams to prepare for that 6 o'clock show, we're actually going to meet you on the porch after. I'm going to whisk the bandits out of the theater and Peter out of the theater, and we'll meet you on the front of Bretton where the steps are and the rocking chairs are. If you want to come and ask a question or share a thought, we will see you there immediately following the performance. Okay, so rather than staying in your seat, come meet us on the porch, let us know what you thought. Thank you for sharing that openness. Get your tickets for As You Like It today at 2, or tomorrow at 2, or Saturday at 2. Come back next summer and see Teresa Rebeck. Bratton Late Night is Friday at 10 p.m. Get your tickets for that beloved event. Catch How I Learned When I Learned before it closes on Sunday. And have a wonderful rest of your summer. We will miss you.